The ink on the Declaration of Independence had barely dried before the young nation began unraveling. The Articles of Confederation, hastily written and hopelessly weak, left the states floating in a sea of disunion. There was no executive branch, no real judiciary, and Congress, powerless to tax, toothless to enforce. It was less a government than a polite suggestion. So, when delegates gathered in Philadelphia during the brutal summer of 1787, it wasn't just about legal theory. It was survival, and for many, particularly Black Americans reflecting on that chapter, the paradox is hard to ignore, fighting for freedom while denying it to so many. Still, that flawed gathering gave birth to a document that would, eventually, hold enough power to challenge even its own contradictions. James Madison, quiet genius with a vision. He was small in stature, often anxious, and plagued by chronic illness. But James Madison didn't need to raise his voice to command respect. His intellect did that for him. He came to Philadelphia with more than ideas. He brought a full draft. The Virginia Plan was bold, a national government with 3 branches and a system of representation that favored populous states. Some thought it arrogant. Others saw brilliance. Madison knew one thing: without structure, liberty couldn't last. His mind was wired for balance, ambition counteracting ambition, power dispersed across carefully drawn lines. Even his detractors admitted the man saw further than most. Today, he's rightly called the father of the Constitution. George Washington. Presence is power. Washington didn't need to say much. Just being in the room elevated the proceedings. The war hero hadn't asked to be president of the convention. In fact, he'd hoped to retire for good. But when the Republic asked, he answered. His leadership provided calm during stormy debates. He didn't weigh in often, but when he did, people listened. Washington wasn't a theorist like Madison, but he understood something crucial. America needed legitimacy, and his name brought it. Franklin and Hamilton, contrasts in drive and diplomacy. Benjamin Franklin arrived in Philadelphia old, ill, and carried by convoys through the city streets. Yet his mind remained sharp as ever. Franklin played the role of elder statesman, the balancer, the peacemaker. When tempers flared, he offered wisdom. When compromise seemed impossible, he helped craft it. Alexander Hamilton, on the other hand, stormed into every debate with fierce energy. Born in the Caribbean, self-made and endlessly ambitious, Hamilton had little patience for what he saw as inefficiency. He wanted a strong central government, a system that could defend itself, command respect, and move fast. Hamilton didn't get everything he wanted, but he moved the needle forward, and he wrote like lightning. Thomas Jefferson, absent but not silent. Jefferson wasn't at the convention. He was in Paris serving as a diplomat. But his ideas hovered over every word. The principles he'd etched into the Declaration still loomed large. Liberty, equality, and the rights of the governed. He corresponded frequently with Madison, questioning and challenging from afar. Jefferson was suspicious of centralized power, wary of elites drafting rules without broader input. He would later become a champion for adding a Bill of Rights, a move that fundamentally shaped the document's legacy. The fight for ratification, convincing a wary public. Writing the Constitution was only half the battle. Selling it? That was war. Many Americans distrusted the proposed system. They feared tyranny in a new form. An elite government that might one day mirror the monarchy they had just escaped. Farmers, laborers, and tradesmen wanted guarantees. They wanted protection from centralized overreach. Public meetings turned heated. Pamphlets and essays flooded cities and towns. It wasn't just about structure anymore. It was about identity. Federalists versus anti-federalists, the nation splits. Federalists, led by Hamilton, Madison, and John Jay, argued that the Constitution would bring stability. A strong national government, they said, wasn't a threat, it was a necessity. Without it, the Union would fall apart. Anti-Federalists pushed back hard. They feared a distant ruling class, unaccountable to the people. Their critiques weren't empty. They asked what would become of individual rights, of local voices, of the balance they fought a revolution to win. The debates weren't polite. They were fierce, personal, and shaped in coffee houses, churches, and newspapers. The country held its breath. The Federalist Papers, essays that turned the tide. Hamilton, Madison, and Jay took to their pens. Writing under the pseudonym Publius, They published 85 essays that explained, justified, and defended the Constitution line by line. The essays didn't just argue, they educated. They transformed skepticism into cautious support. They laid bare the rationale behind each clause, turning abstract governance into a clear, practical vision. Even now, the Federalist Papers remain a masterclass in political persuasion. One state at a time, narrow margins, massive stakes. Ratification wasn't unanimous. Some states passed it by razor-thin margins. In places like Massachusetts and New York, the vote was a cliffhanger. It came down to town debates and individual speeches. Families split, communities wrestled. Ultimately, a compromise saved the Constitution, the promise of a Bill of Rights. The Bill of Rights, securing the people's liberty. The first 10 amendments weren't afterthoughts. They were lifelines, protections for speech, religion, the press, assembly, and the right to bear arms. Protections against unlawful searches, cruel punishments, and unchecked authority. They answered the cry of anti-federalists and reassured a nervous public. For Black Americans, these rights would take generations to materialize and still face threats today. But the framework to demand them was finally written. Madison's evolution, from centralist to champion of rights. Madison, once wary of enumerating rights, changed course. He listened. He adapted. His pivot wasn't weakness, it was wisdom. He recognized that a republic must serve its people visibly, not just in theory. So he authored most of the Bill of Rights himself, proving that even the authors of the Constitution could be moved by the public they served. Legacy of the Constitution, still in the room with us. The Constitution isn't frozen in 1787. It lives, it argues, it evolves. Every modern debate about voting rights, surveillance, equal protection, or executive power traces back to that parchment, that blueprint, that fight. And while the Constitution was born in contradiction, it contains within it the tools for course correction. For Black professionals navigating the complexities of law, leadership, and legacy today, the Founders' fight offers a mirror and a challenge. The Constitution doesn't guarantee justice, but it offers a platform to demand it. And that may be its most radical promise of all.